This is College Football 26 Dynasty organized by state. There's a lot of ways to make regional college football conferences, but for me, I wanted to make sure that each team in a conference is at least sharing a state with one other team in that same conference. So we did have to combine a few states together to make the only 10 conferences that we have in College Football 26, but we still had no teams from the same state that were in different conferences. So starting with the American, this is the Carolinas and Virginia. So all the North Carolina teams, App State, Charlotte, Duke, East Carolina, NC State, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. South Carolina, we've got Coastal, Clemson, and South Carolina. And then, of course, for Virginia, JMU, Liberty, ODU, Virginia, and Virginia Tech. The ACC is the Northeast Conference. So Army, Buffalo, Syracuse from New York, BC and UMass from Massachusetts, Marshall and West Virginia from West Virginia, Pitt, Penn State, and Temple from Pennsylvania, and Maryland and Navy from Maryland. The Big Ten is Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky. So we've got Ball State, Indiana, Purdue, and Notre Dame from Indiana. We've got Illinois, Northwestern, and NIU from Illinois, and then Kentucky, Louisville, and Western Kentucky from Kentucky. The Big 12 is all Texas: Baylor, Houston, North Texas, Rice, SMU, Sam Houston, TCU, Texas, A&M, Texas State, Texas Tech, UTEP, and UTSA, all from Texas in one conference. That's kind of what this is built around because I wanted to make a conference of just Texas teams after the video I did on my original channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and check that channel out, which I'll have in the bio and at the end of the video as well. Conference USA is kind of a weird plains conference. It gets kind of weird when you start to split up these teams, but Arkansas State from Arkansas, Iowa State from Iowa, Kansas State from Kansas, Missouri State from Missouri, Oklahoma, OSU, and Tulsa from Oklahoma. Independent teams are teams that did not have another or do not have another team from the same state in FBS. So Boise State from Idaho, Delaware from Delaware, Hawaii from Hawaii, Minnesota, Nebraska, Rutgers from North Carolina, from New Jersey, UConn from Connecticut, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. All are the only teams in their state that currently compete in top-level college football. Delaware, of course, is a new team. Boise State lost Idaho a couple times over the past 20, 30 seasons. They've bounced back and forth between FBS and FCS, and currently these are the only teams that represent their state in top-level college football. The MAC is just Ohio and Michigan. So from Ohio, we've got Akron, Bowling Green, Cincinnati, Kent State, Miami of Ohio State, and Toledo. And then from Michigan, Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Michigan State, and Western Michigan. The Mountain West is the four corner states plus Nevada. So from Colorado, we've got Air Force, Colorado State, Arizona, and Arizona State from Arizona, BYU, Utah, and Utah State from Utah, New Mexico, and New Mexico State representing the New Mexico. And those are the four corners, and then you get Nevada as well with Nevada and UNLV. The Pac-12 is just the three western states, so Cal, Fresno State, San Diego State, San Jose State, UCLA, and USC from California, Oregon and Oregon State from Oregon, Washington and Washington State from Washington. The SEC is Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. This is the next biggest conference that we have. Probably could have separated some of these teams, but it gets a little weird geographically to separate any of these teams, and there's a lot of teams from particular states in this one. So Alabama, Auburn, Jacksonville State, South Alabama, and Troy from Alabama. FIU, FAU, Florida, FSU, Miami, and UCF and USF from Florida. And from Georgia, we have Georgia Southern, Georgia State, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State from Georgia. I forgot to include UAB in the Alabama teams. That one is hard to do off the top. And then the Sun Belt, we have Louisiana, Mississippi, and Tennessee as our three states here. So LSU, Louisiana Tech, UL Monroe from Louisiana, as well as Tulane. From Mississippi, we've got Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Southern Miss. And then from Tennessee, we've got Memphis, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt, as well as Middle Tennessee State. Those are all the teams and all the conferences. Let's sim for 3 seasons and see who's the best conference and who emerges as the best team. Here we are at the first CFP poll. We're working with Cincinnati because I've got my Reds hat on, and let's see what's going on. So Oregon is the #1 team in the country, undefeated after beating Cal last week. They are running the Pac-12, which is it's like the Pac-8 with the add-on California teams. Pretty easy division to understand. Indiana and Penn State look like they're going to have a top 6 non-con matchup coming up here. Penn State lost to Ohio State at the beginning of the year, but this is a nationally televised game. They've had a couple nationally televised games. Penn State has been one of the better teams. So let's see if there's any surprising teams near the top. Louisville and Illinois tend to do pretty well in the Sims. Baylor, I can see popping up every once in a while. No. See, this is what we've been noticing from these more widespread conference realignments that we've done that put in G5 and power teams into each of the conferences. G5 teams tend to not end up in the top 25. Let's see if there's anybody even close. Oh, this is the first CFP, so it doesn't give us people that were not in the rank. Is there anybody even close? San Diego State is near the top, but nothing particularly surprising from the rankings there. Let's look at our conference standings in our Ohio, Michigan MAC. So Ohio State is running our conference. Cincinnati not off to a great start considering how many easy teams there are in here. They're only 4-4, so not a great start for us. But 4-2 in the conference. Who have we lost to? Lost to Utah on the road. That's a tough game. Lost to Nebraska at home by 14. Not great. 3 to Ohio State, losing to Toledo. That's damning. You got to win that game. Okay, but they have a pretty good chance of making it out. It's interesting that they kind of play the conference that they're in when they move to a new conference for non-conference games. Anyway, let's sim to this is a rivalry game between Miami of Ohio and Cincinnati. That makes sense because they're both from Ohio, but I didn't realize that there would be a Bell Trophy for it. Interesting. That is definitely a rivalry that is being lost to time with how much Cincinnati has moved around in the past 20 seasons. Okay, we're going to sim to the conference championships and see where we're at. So Nebraska and Minnesota has replaced the Army-Navy game, which I thought was interesting. In a new world that we get Nebraska and Minnesota as our kind of end-of-the-year rivalry game that everybody watches, apparently. All right, so our conference championship games, not that interesting. Of course, we knew that we were going to get the Oregon USC championship. Anytime you reconstitute the Pac-12 in any form, and sometimes even just in the Big Ten, Oregon and USC end up in the championship game as they do here. We got another top 10 matchup in the SEC between Miami and Georgia, which is not that surprising when you've watched a couple sims. Miami and Georgia tend to rise up to the top. Miami has actually been dominating in basically all of our videos this week, going back to Saturday when they've been dominating. Indiana at the top of the pile, Texas Tech at the top of the pile, both ranked matchups, but probably the higher ranked teams are in, win or loss, and the lower ranked teams don't have a chance. The Sun Belt Championship, Ole Miss has probably the most on the line. Ole Miss and Utah have probably the most on the line of anybody in these conference championship games. Utah definitely needs to win to get into the playoff. Ole Miss probably needs to win to get in. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they're probably, neither of these teams are going to get in with their conference championship automatic qualifier. They would need to get in from just winning and getting into the top 12. And what do we have? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 potentially conferences in the first season of the playoffs. This might be the most successful widespread realignment yet as far as getting a bunch of different conferences into the playoffs. Surprise, surprise, John Mateer wins Heisman in the first season. Cincinnati, I was on my 1-year contract coming into this season, got the contract extended by making the 68 Ventures Bowl. We'll take on Southern Miss in this is the MAC versus the Sun Belt in the Mobile, Alabama Bowl, the 68 Ventures. I don't know what that is. Why does a military contractor need a bowl game? We've talked about this. What are these bowl game sponsors? Anyway, let's look at the bracket here. We had 9 conferences potentially making it in. Let's see how many of them made it in. So we get USC ends up winning the Pac-12 championship game. So we had the Pac-12. We have, I think that the Indiana conference was technically the Big Ten. We have the ACC. So that's 3 in our Northeast conference. We have two Texas teams, so that's 4. We have Ohio State representing the MAC, that's 5. Georgia and Miami both representing, I think the SEC is what we end up having them in. Alabama's in that as well. Ole Miss representing the Sun Belt, and Clemson representing our kind of eastern seaboard, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So we get 8 conferences in the first season. We're only missing our Plains Conference, which is Oklahoma, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas. And what else are we missing here? Mountain West, it looks like, is the other conference that's missing with no Colorado, Utah, or Four Corners team in this. So we're close, but we get 8, did I say 7 or 8 conferences in the first season, which is a very good start. Texas Tech and Alabama will face off in the first round. Winner will play Penn State. Miami and Ole Miss, winner will take on Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Clemson and Georgia, winner takes on USC. Ohio State, Texas A&M, winner will take on Oregon. No same conference matchups in the first 2 rounds at least, and I think no same conference matchups until, the very first one could be in the semifinal between Oregon and USC. And then there's really only 1 or 2 other ways that we could have the same conferences matching up. So this is a very well-balanced realignment. Okay, Cincinnati goes 8-5 in the first season, gets the win in the Mobile Bowl. We'll see if they can do anything. They should be one of the top teams in the MAC with how it's set up. So see if they can relay that into some kind of success. All right, the first round. Texas Tech takes down Alabama. They'll take on Penn State in the Sugar Bowl. Miami gets past Ole Miss. They will take on Indiana in the Rose Bowl. Georgia gets past Clemson. They'll take on USC in the Cotton Bowl. They crush Clemson. And then Ohio State and Oregon will face off in the Orange Bowl in what should be a Rose Bowl matchup. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 conferences make it to the quarterfinal. We could have an all Pac-12 rematch of the Pac-12 championship game between Oregon and USC in the next round if they both move on to win. Other than that, we don't have, and then Georgia and Miami very well could have an SEC rematch if they both make it into the national championship game. Other than that, we don't have any teams from the same conferences in the second round. Okay, so we do get the Pac-12 rematch as USC gets past Georgia by 6. Oregon puts the hammer down to the Buckeyes, 34-14. USC won the Pac-12 championship game, but I think that based on the records, Oregon beat USC during the regular season before the Pac-12 championship game. So this might be the third matchup that we have so far in the Fiesta Bowl. Indiana and Penn State, they're neighboring conference. No, they're not quite neighboring conferences, but close enough. An old school Big Ten matchup. And we get chalk in the semifinal, 1 versus 4 in the top matchup in the Peach Bowl, and then, of course, that 2 versus 3 in the Fiesta Bowl. So right now, the Pac-12 is in line for best conference, but it does come down to national championships at the end of the day. USC holds firm after winning the Pac-12 championship game. They make it to the national championship game, winning by 3 against Oregon. Indiana gets past Penn State by 7. We had 2 one-score games in the semifinal. USC versus Indiana. Indiana looking for the 16-0 perfect season in Miami against USC. And they pull it out, folks. The first season, they go 16-0. Indiana gets the victory, 47-42, and the first national championship. You don't often actually see Indiana winning national championships in the Sim, so that is a little bit of a surprise there. I thought it would end up being USC. The Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky conference, what I think is the Big Ten, starts off on top in the best conference. Indiana starts off as the best team. But the Pac-12 is sneaking up there with 2 teams in the semifinal. Let's go to next season. Cincinnati continues to struggle in the MAC, going 4-5 this season. USC, however, is back on top. They get another win against Oregon. So that's 3 that we've seen so far. Pac-12 championship, CFP last year, and then, of course, this last one, which was a top 5 matchup. They went at Autzen by 8. So USC is well on its way to making it back to the CFP championship. Oregon is also doing well so far. Baylor, a bit of a surprise up near the top there. We have 2 in our Texas conference in the top 3. Anything that is surprising, Boston College all the way up to number 10. They have a matchup against number 8, Nebraska, who is a independent team here. So that's an interesting matchup that we see there. Anybody else that's kind of interesting? SMU in our Texas division just lost to UTSA, so that probably dropped them down quite a bit. UCLA, who basically always starts to get going there in the second round. Indiana is our defending national champion. They're 7-2 and looking on the outside looking in at the playoff currently, so we'll see if they can turn things around there. LSU, Pitt, we didn't see them up there last year, so quite a few new teams looking to make it into the playoff this season. Last year, we also missed out on having Oklahoma in our CFP, or the Oklahoma division in our CFP. They look like they're going to get in maybe this year with Oklahoma, and we don't have anybody from the Mountain West in the top 25 who's missed out last season as well. Okay, our Oklahoma Conference USA Conference, the Plains division, will be in for the second season here, with Oklahoma and Arkansas probably both in regardless of the outcome of this game. USC is number 1 in the country, undefeated, well on their way to making it back to the national championship game, which they lost last season. The Mountain West does not look like they're going to be represented, even though they have 2 pretty good teams here, both at 10-2. I think they're just getting disrespected because of their conference. Texas Tech will probably be in. Ohio State probably needs to win to make it in. LSU probably needs to win to make it in. Alabama definitely needs to win to have a chance at making it in. We have a pretty good representation of the ACC. So there's a lot of teams that are not in the conference championships that are ranked in the top 12 currently. Let's take a look and see maybe what we're missing from the conference championship game layout. So Oregon looks like they're going to be in. They must have just gotten a big win. 99s across the board for Oregon, so they look like a pretty good team. Clemson was not in one of our conference championship. No, they are in a conference championship game, but they're dominating. Nebraska is our independent team that looks like they're going to make it in. Indiana, last year's national champion, probably is in this year, regardless of what happens, but they could be hurt by these 4 teams here that are all in conference championship games looking to make it in. Boston College is making a run this season. They did not make it up. No G5 teams represented yet again. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in these 4 conference championship games, and if that knocks out our defending national champion out of the playoff. Jaden Mayava gets the Heisman Trophy. I think that USC went undefeated and probably won the Pac-12 championship based on where they're at, probably number 1 seed. So that's why they are there. We get an award, the Jet Award, the return specialist for Dakarai Anderson. Interesting. I haven't seen this award won, so that's a big award to win for Cincinnati. They make it back to a bowl game, the Xbox Bowl. I didn't know there was an Xbox Bowl. What bowl game is that? The Xbox Bowl. Interesting. Never heard of the Xbox Bowl. That is a bowl game that makes sense. That is a brand that makes sense for them to have a bowl game. There you go. The Xbox Bowl. They'll take on Missouri, which is kind of a local matchup, I guess. Cincinnati and Missouri, not that far away in the grand scheme of things. Let's look at our bracket here. So USC does go undefeated. They're the number 1 team in the country. Indiana, who was last year's national champion, has a chance to get back against USC in a rematch of last year's national championship game and potentially beat them 2 years in a row. That'll be interesting to see if they can knock off our independent team, Nebraska. Boston College versus Clemson, with the winner taking on Arkansas. So Boston College sneaks up. We have 2 teams out of the Northeast with Pitt and Boston College both in there. Clemson back for the second straight season. Arkansas and Oklahoma for the first time out of the Plains division. LSU in for the first time out of our Sun Belt division, which they had a team in last year, I'm pretty sure. But they will be, the LSU's in for the first time taking on Oregon, who was in last season. Texas Tech was in last season and got a win. Ohio State was in last season and got a win. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 conferences represented, as well as an independent team in this season. Our double ups are the Northeast Conference and the Plains Conference. Everybody else is from separate conferences and the independents. So this is, again, a very nice spread setup for the playoffs. Indiana will not be repeating their national championship this season. They go down to Nebraska by 14 in the first round. Clemson, who got knocked off pretty badly last season by, if I remember right, Georgia, they get their get back against Boston College in the first round. Some might say Boston College did not deserve their spot as a 3-loss team, but they ended up getting knocked out anyway. Clemson will take on Arkansas in the Cotton Bowl. Nebraska will take on USC, national champion hopeful, and really in line for the best team in the video if they get that win, because they would have been a runner-up. got a national championship and gotten a Heisman if they can pull it off. LSU gets past Oregon by 2 touchdowns. They'll take on Texas Tech in the Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State, who I believe got a win last year as well, lost in the second round, will take on Pitt in the Orange Bowl. Any setup conference matchups? I don't think we have anybody from the same conference left in. Yeah, everybody is from a different conference or independent in the quarterfinals. So we'll have no conference matchups in this college football playoff. Cincinnati doesn't win their bowl game this year. They don't win the Xbox Bowl. So 1-1 in bowl games so far. Not a great start, but at least 2 straight bowl games. All right, we don't quite get the chalk as Clemson beats Arkansas by 14. USC is still on a warpath. They crush Nebraska. They'll take on Clemson in the Rose Bowl. Texas Tech, I mean, there's no good games here. Everything's by 2+ scores. Texas Tech gets past LSU by 19. Pitt gets past Ohio State by 14. They'll face off in the Sugar Bowl. So really, we're still looking at USC. None of these teams even got a win last season, I don't think. So this is all new semifinal here outside of USC, who is undefeated. And USC keeps the drive alive. They get past Clemson 37-14. Again, crushes another opponent. Pittsburgh, the number 2 team, gets past Texas Tech by 1 score. It's USC and Pitt in Vegas for a national championship. And if USC wins this, it's going to be really hard for anybody to get the best team in the video outside of USC. And they do it. They avenge their loss last season in the national championship game. They get past another 2-score victory past Pitt. They win the Heisman Trophy with Jaden Mayava this season, and they go runner-up and national champion. They are by far the best team in the video so far. I don't see what they could do to lose that at this point. And the Pac-12 probably takes the lead in the national, or the best team in the, or best conference in the video, because they have our team in each of the last 2 national champions, and the Big Ten only gets Indiana in, who loses in the first round here. So we have one final season. Let's see if Cincinnati can do anything to get past just a bowl game appearance. Maybe they can get some traction in the MAC. And let's see if there's any other conference, maybe this Northeast Conference or maybe the Texas Conference, that can get a national championship and maybe a couple appearances in the semifinal to take it away from the Pac-12. Cincinnati is mid, 4-4 yet again. Basically every season they are 4-4. Okay, so we see a couple teams here that we remember. Oregon has been very good this video. USC, of course, is looking to be the best team in the video. Boston College and Pitt were in last season. Nebraska was in last season. Notre Dame, it's the first time we see them up there. We have 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 7, 4 in the top 10. So the Pac-12 probably is going to solidify themselves as the best conference in this video, even if they haven't already done that based on what has happened in the first 2 seasons. Anything interesting here? Missouri, who we lost to in the Xbox Bowl last season, is 9-0, so that's something interesting. But no G5 teams yet again. So next video, well, one of these videos coming up, I'm going to figure out how to get the G5. I'm going to mess with College Football 26 to see how to best get the G5 into the top of college football. And I think that I have some theories, but we're going to work on that this next time. Let's look at the MAC standings, because it didn't look like there was too many MAC teams in the top 25. Ohio State was the highest up. They've been to 2 straight CFPs. They're probably on their way to another one, being 7-1. Who was their loss to? It was against Alabama, who is 8-0. It's interesting to see how this kind of has shaken out with the rating or conference rankings. So probably Ohio State is the one, but again, Cincinnati has just been a mid team, and they should definitely at least be right around here with Michigan State, and they have not done that in the MAC. So let's see what the conference championships look like. Another year, another 6 wins for Cincinnati. Our championships. Okay, Oklahoma will take on Missouri. Oklahoma's probably in either way. Missouri probably doesn't have a chance to get in. Oregon and Washington. The first time we don't see Oregon. No, USC was facing off against Washington last season. So Washington makes it to their 2nd straight. Oregon, Washington, and USC all make 2 Pac-12 championship games. Still nothing from the Mountain West. I think they're getting screwed here by the way that the conferences are laid out. So they should be in at least once, but we're not going to get any Mountain West teams in. Everybody else has already made it into the playoff. Ohio State is looking for their 3rd straight playoff appearance. They need to win the MAC here and probably get a little lucky ahead of them to get in, which they will get a little lucky, because 11 versus 12 in the Big Ten championship game. Winners and losers out if Ohio State wins. The Northeast has been probably our second best division so far. They're probably continuing that in this game. Clemson probably in for their third straight time. They're undefeated so far. Two undefeated teams here, and they're only both in the top 20. So not silly. These rankings are weird. Georgia, undefeated, number 19. One-loss teams. There's got to be so many one-loss teams. Well, but Texas is 10-2, and they're in the top 8. Washington has 3 losses. They're in the top 15. Oklahoma and Missouri both have losses. They're ranked above these other teams. LSU has a loss. They're number 7. So what exactly is going on with all of this here? Well, let's just go ahead and see what the bracket looks like. Bryce Underwood wins the Heisman for Clemson, which is an interesting one. I think that Clemson probably made their third straight CFP. Let's look at the bracket here. Oh, Cincinnati didn't make a bowl game even though they're 6-6. Why? Wait, hang on. Let's look at that. They didn't present us with a bowl game. Yeah, they didn't get a bowl game even though they're 6-6. Wow. That's what you get for being uninspiring. Ugh, Cincinnati. Okay. So, Clemson does make it in for their third straight time. USC doesn't make it back in. They were on the first CFP poll, they were number 3. They must have lost that game. Probably lost 2 games out of the final 3. One against Washington. The other one was probably against UCLA, who was also highly ranked, but they didn't make it in. Okay, so Oregon makes it in. We get our first round matchup that is in the same conference with the Northeast Conference, Boston College and Penn State. The winner takes on Oregon in the Rose Bowl. We could get a rematch of the 1995 Rose Bowl between Oregon and Penn State. Granted, they fall to victory. We get another in-conference matchup between Missouri and Oklahoma. Winner will take on number 1 Texas Tech in the Sugar Bowl. Clemson in for the third straight time. They'll take on Texas, who is a new team to the playoff, with the winner taking on last year's runner-up Pitt. Notre Dame and LSU will face off. This is Notre Dame's first time in. LSU has been in before. Both of these teams have lost Brian Kelly in the last 10 seasons. Winner will take on Nebraska, who is our independent team that's made it now twice in a row. They won the first round last season, but then they ended up losing, but we'll see if they can make it in. So Oregon is in for their third time. Penn State, I believe, is in for their third time. Clemson is in for their third time, and Texas Tech is in for their third time. Oklahoma is in for the second time. Missouri's in for Oklahoma and Pitt are in for, and Nebraska are in for their second time. LSU was in for their second time as well. Notre Dame, Texas, Boston College is also in for their second time. Notre Dame, Texas are both in for their first time. I think those are the only 2 first-time teams in this one. I'm not sure about, and Missouri, also in for the first time. Okay, let's see what the first round looks like. Holy shit. We do get the 95 Rose Bowl rematch as Penn State wins their conference matchup in the first round by 3 over Boston College. It's interesting because I don't think either of those teams, Pitt was also in from that conference. So 3 from the Northeast Conference, and Pitt was the winner. Anyway, Missouri gets their win in the conference matchup. They get in over Oklahoma. They'll take on Texas Tech in an old-school Big 12 matchup. I just did a video about the Big 12 today. Check that out on my main channel. Clemson gets a victory 56-35, so they got 2 straight seasons of a CFP victory. They'll take on Pitt in the Fiesta Bowl, old-school ACC matchup, current ACC matchup. LSU beats Notre Dame in their first time in. They will take on our independent Nebraska team. So the Pac-12 can guarantee themselves the best conference in the video with just a victory here from Oregon. The Northeast does have 2 teams in, so if they can find a way to get both of those teams to the national championship game, maybe there's some kind of conversation that goes on there with USC not making it in this season. The Ducks clinch it for the Pac. They beat Penn State by 30 points, getting their revenge for the 95 Rose Bowl game. Rich Brooks, I hope you're watching. Texas Tech gets past Missouri by 3, so we've got Texas Tech and Oregon in the Orange Bowl, which could be a preview of a second-round game this year if everything goes to plan for the Ducks in the first round. Pitt does get the victory over Clemson. They're looking to get to their second-straight national championship game. That goes through LSU, who beats our independent Nebraska. Pitt and LSU will face off in the Cotton Bowl. So 2 conference champions at the bottom, 2 non-conference champions at the top. The winners will face off in the national championship game for all the marbles. And it is our 2 best conferences in the video so far. Oregon, representing the Pac-12, gets past Texas Tech by 8. Pitt gets past LSU by 2, they will face off in the New Orleans Bowl. Pitt, of course, representing the Northeast, which I think is the ACC as we currently have it set up. So the Pac-12 does have it locked down. They could get 2 of the 3 national championships. They've had a participant in all 3 national championships, USC in the first 2, Oregon in this last one. Pitt has gone to 2 straight. They could potentially get it for their first win and maybe put their name in the running for probably the second best team in the video. Actually, the winner here is definitely the second best team in the video. Oregon's been to 3 straight CFPs. They've got a win in the first one. No, they have this. Yes, they got a win in the first one, but they lost the last one. They've been a first round bye, I think, in all 3, though. They could get their first national championship, and then, of course, Pitt being the runner-up last season. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Ducks get the win. Pac-12 wins 2 of the 3 national championships, has a representative in all 3. The best team in the video is USC. Best conference in the video is Pac-12. Make sure that you check out the video that I did on my main channel today, the mini lives of the Big 12. But other than that, we will see you tomorrow.